Texas's Department of Public Safety issued emergency declarations. Ohio's governor declared a state of emergency. Disaster funds released in Arkansas. Sounds pretty ominous, right? Nope. Not for those who got to see it. It was just awesome.
This is the moment. Oh my gosh! I'm so bright!
This is
it's
our
a halo!
Look how dark it is in Dallas. I mean, look at that. It's pitch black in Niagara Falls.
Brian, it might as well be 3:19 in the morning.
The total solar eclipse captivating the country. The sun and the moon are the stars of the day. But don't forget these names: Biden, Trump, Elon, and Diamond. They made some pretty big headlines, too. Come on in. I'm Blake Berman. This is The Hill on NewsNation. All right, here we are, here we go. Joining us today, Chris Stirewalt, host of The Hill Sunday and senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Mark Caputo is the national political reporter at The Bulwark. Ashley Davis, former official in the George W. Bush White House. And Brad Howard, a Democratic strategist. Hello to you all. Nice to have you all in. Happy Eclipse Monday, is that what this is?
I'll go with it. That's
You'll
fine.
go with it? Everyone was rolling with it, so let's roll with it. Is this what it takes to bring the country together? Like we had an eclipse, everyone's talking about it, woohoo.
It is good to be reminded of the futileness of human efforts, right? We get Washington's obsessed with power. We talk about all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's good for us to be reminded occasionally that there are bigger things at work, that the universe is grander. The designs of the universe are grander than what we can cough up here with humble politics.
Anybody go outside and watch this thing today?
I was on a conference call, obviously.
You were working?
I was working.
I was working trying to put this show together.
But my window, it did get dark outside. You actually watched it.
Yeah, I got my glasses here, and
there you go.
my official ISO glasses, and no, it was great.
We kinda-
Got to see it.
I don't
and had a
think
lot
these
of fun.
are really protecting.
Isn't it wild
You just
that
need
we
the
have
ISO.
this cosmic event? Is that one way to describe it, I guess?
Yeah.
And we do it with these flimsy little glasses.
But yeah, you can't see anything when you're indoors, though. You have to stare directly at a light for you to see something, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Save it for another 40 years.
Yeah,
You'll be
exactly.
ready. You'll be ready.
Is this what it takes to bring the country together?
I'm not a good person to answer that question. I'm suspicious that the media and the government told you not to look at the sun. I went right out and I looked right at it.
Aren't you the media?
I'm still trying to figure out what happened.
Anti-deep state media.
Brad Howard, by the way, out on top of a roof here in Washington earlier today for the solar eclipse. Mike DeWine, the governor of Ohio, threw his glasses on. By the way, all these governors, not all of them, a lot of them around the country, as you heard me say there off the top, had to declare, or not had to, but did declare some sort of emergency ahead of time just to deal with this, with the influx of people, crowds, etc. But an incredible sight to see for most of the eastern part of the country today. All right, meantime, less than a year after the Supreme Court struck down his plan, President Biden is taking another shot at student loan forgiveness. The president sharing new details today in the swing state of Wisconsin. More than 30 million borrowers could get relief under the president's plan.
While college degree still is a ticket to the middle class, that ticket's becoming much too expensive. By freeing millions of Americans from this crushing debt of student debt, it means they can finally get on with their lives.
Now, the new plan could cancel interest payments above the principal loan. Debt for borrowers eligible for programs but who haven't yet applied for them. Undergraduate debt for borrowers who entered repayment more than 20 years ago or more than 25 years ago for graduate loans. And it could cancel debt for those experiencing hardships. All right, so the focus here is on student loans. But is this just really a stimulus package in disguise in an election year? Is that what's going on here?
Yeah, and I will say one thing, just I avoid policy like the plague, but I will tell you, if you want to make college less expensive, the way that you do that is not by forgiving student loans, right? Because it's just going to drive up the cost for other people. Biden's in Wisconsin. It's swing state. He's there. He's got a problem with young voters. The people who would be affected by this are young voters. This is nakedly political.
So in the fact sheet that the Biden White House put out, they mentioned that this will help black borrowers 14 times, Latino borrowers 13 times, and the age demographic that has the most student loans, 25 to 34-year-olds. Mark, when you look at the problems that the president is having, it is sort of those demographics, is it not?
Well, right. I mean, that's why he's doing it. Now, there's two ways to look at it. One is that he's just, once again, trying to play an old trick that he knows is going to be canceled. He's going to get caught trying. On the other hand, he's at least trying. Like, Joe Biden has a problem with segments of the electorate. So what he does is he goes out there and proposes things. Whether they work or not, who knows? You're not really seeing that with Donald Trump. He's got various problems with various segments of the electorate. He's not even really giving it a whirl. So whether this actually dispirits those voters from voting when it doesn't happen because the courts block it is another matter.
And remember, he was pushed to this issue because of Senator Warren and Senator Sanders during the last presidential run, and it was their idea and how they were getting all the young progressive voters. And so obviously he's having a major issue with that demographic.
Are you buying votes here? Are you trying to buy votes?
Well, I think you're responding to your constituents. This is what elected officials do. Your constituents say we want this, and so if you agree with them, then you propose it. But what I think is smart about this plan in particular is he is focusing on the most egregious abuses of the student loan industry. When you look at people of color, it's because that they have higher interest. It's because that they come from systemically unequal backgrounds that are disadvantaged. Therefore, their rates are inherently higher. And then when you look at, for instance, the public student loan forgiveness program, that is after 10 years of service, granting automatic forgiveness, rather than I have to go through all that paperwork. That was awful.
I hear the argument, and let's show the numbers real quick, because there is obviously a big issue with student loans and the outstanding balances in this country. The government backs a lot of these student loans. The government, Brad, also insures FHA home loans, right? So why doesn't the president then say, you know what? If the FHA insures home loans, let's wipe away $20,000 of home loans. If you got $20,000, why stop it? Why stop at student loans? Let's go to home loans too. Well, and if he's not, is he picking and choosing winners and losers?
He's testing the waters with the courts here, right? The courts are guiding a lot of this here. But I think in addition to all these things, like I said, he's focused on the most egregious examples. For instance, the fact that your repayment amount is higher than it was when you first took out the loan is insane. That's unfair, and it should be brought down. And that's what he's.
Isn't that how interest works, though?
Yeah.
No, but I mean, but over like years.
Ashley was smiling at me when I made that analogy. You like that one? You thought that was a decent.
Well, I was laughing because I was going to say he's probably going to do that with the housing loans, like in September.
Okay.
The outdated thinking here around college is a big part of the problem. You heard the president say that college is a pathway to the middle class. That's not the reality, right? The reality is that America is embracing non-college answers. They're embracing vocational and technical education. We have all these jobs open for all this other stuff. And the idea that getting a 4-year degree in ethnomusicology is the pathway to the middle. I'm sorry, but your lute playing is, but that is the pathway to the middle class has led us to the inflation of this bubble and all of these problems.
All right, well, the president's attempt to cancel student loans is facing legal scrutiny. Leading the charge against the plan are Republican attorneys general from 11 states, with Kansas's top lawyer leading the effort. Chris Kobach is the Kansas Attorney General and joins us live. Mr. Attorney General, thanks for being with us here on the Hill. Appreciate it. So you led the fight, the legal fight, all the way up to the Supreme Court in round one. You planning to sue again here?
Yeah, we already have sued again. It was 6 states that went all the way to the Supreme Court in round one, and we prevailed in June of 2023, last summer. And now this is version 2.0 of the Biden student loan forgiveness plan, and it's equally illegal. Congress never authorized this. And of course, today he announced version 3.0 while we're challenging the second version, but all three are illegal. The Supreme Court clearly ruled that only Congress can do this, and there's nothing in federal statute that allows the president to do the first version. The second one is equally illegal, and we hope that the courts will enjoin this fairly quickly. You know, Congress can do this. Forgiving student loan debt is something people can debate about all day long, but it takes Congress to do it. An executive agency cannot do this unilaterally.
So what is the solution, right? There is a problem. I don't think you would find anyone who has a kid who is entering or is paying off a student loan, Mr. Attorney General, who wouldn't acknowledge that there is a problem. What is the solution?
Well, there's definitely a problem. And I say this as a parent who's trying to set aside and scrape for money to put into my college savings accounts of my children, 5 children. And college is extremely expensive and people can't afford it. But this is not the solution. Forcing taxpayers that include people who never went to college, people who couldn't afford to go to college, people who worked their way through college, or people like my family trying to save money in advance of the kids going to college, we shouldn't have to pay for those who took out a debt that they're having difficulty repaying years later. Indeed, you're transferring money from, on average, lower income Americans to higher income Americans. That's not the way to solve the problem. I think the way to solve the problem, as one of your panelists mentioned just a moment ago, is you have to look at the cost of college. You don't do things that inflate the cost of college. You need to start thinking about things that push down the cost of college. That's the core of the problem.
You know, you're from an agricultural state, obviously. I remember during the trade war with China, Donald Trump singled out farmers and made sure that $28 billion went their way. At the time, the criticism, and I see Brad Howard here shaking his head, at the time, the criticism was that is the government picking winners and losers. And I think you just heard my analogy on the FHA home loans, that is essentially could be the government picking winners and losers. Is this as wrong as maybe in the trade war, saying, you know what, farmers, you get money, but the other segment doesn't?
I think the difference in the analogy you're making there is that in the trade war, President Trump took actions that had an immediate impact on American agricultural producers because of his actions against China to equalize the situation, bring about fairer trade. It had a direct impact on the farmers, and so he was trying to compensate them for something the government did indirectly to them. This is a little different. These are borrowers who took on the loan, knowing full well that they were supposed to repay the loan, and so nobody did anything to them. And it's inappropriate for the government to come in and say, okay, you people over here who didn't go to college, you have to pay for those people who still have loan debt.
Do you believe that the president is trying to, that this is just purely the election, essentially trying to buy votes during an election season?
You know, the timing is awfully suspicious. You know, as a lawyer, I'm just looking at whether he can do it, and he cannot do it under federal statute, and that's what we're sticking to in court. But I think, as your panel also pointed out, the timing is awfully suspicious, and the way he's touting it in these speeches, in these campaign rallies, suggests that he's using it as a campaign point.
All right, Chris Kobach, Attorney General from the state of Kansas. We'll leave it there. We appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You heard what there?
That was a great question.
Which one?
Yours, the one about the farmers, right?
I just, the government picking winners and losers in both administrations. It was the example that I threw at you with FHA home loans and with Trump and the trade war during farmers. But sorry, go on.
The belief, Republicans had a belief that Barack Obama won the 2012 election because he gave away free cell phones. The Obama phone. Remember the Obama phone?
Oh, we got calls a lot.
Yeah. Well, you got to quit giving out these Obama phones. So one side sees it when the other side does. So for social psychology enthusiasts, there was a great example of fundamental attribution error. When we do it, it's for a very good cause. When they do it, it's naked election pandering. And look, panderers are going to pander. Politicians are going to do what they're going to do. But much like with Trump, and I know we're going to talk about this later, and I'm not trying to get ahead of myself, but much like Trump on abortion. So here's Trump reaching out on abortion to try to find a better answer by saying, well, we're going to send it back to the states. He's looking for something to do with persuadable voters, but he's going to give up something with his base. And it's the Mickey Mouse balloon. You squeeze one ear, the other ear gets bigger. For Biden, he's doing something for his base, but it's going to upset normies who are saying, how come I have to underwrite the college education of people who took out loans they can't afford? So that's always the push me, pull me in an election.
All right, coming up here on the Hill, people like myself, for better or worse, we read it every year. Jamie Dimon, the head of the biggest bank in this country. I knew that would make Chris laugh. Jamie Dimon released his annual shareholder letter earlier today, more than 60 pages long, but one line above all stood out, and it got me wondering, did he just nail the 2024 election? We'll talk about it. Plus, he raised a staggering $50 million over the weekend. He could have just let that sit for a handful of days, get a good headline out of it, but he didn't. Donald Trump now weighing in on abortion, and you are going to break down what?
I'm just going to do a hunger strike until Jamie Dimon comes on the show to talk to you.
Jamie, come on. We'd love to have him on.
I could go a long time. I could make it a long time on a hunger strike. No, we're going to talk about the delta for Trump and Biden on protest votes in these primary states, and we're going to talk about what the implications are for the general election, what it could mean, what it might not mean. It'll be fascinating. It won't have Jamie Dimon, but it'll be great.
Firewall breaks it down, and I promise you, this thing that Dimon said.
It's good.
It's good.
It's good.
We'll talk about it. You're watching The Hill here on NewsNation. All right, welcome back here to The Hill on NewsNation. So it is the event of the day and perhaps one of the more interesting videos of the day. Donald Trump posting this to social media before the eclipse. All right, around the table we go. What do you see?
Well, can I just say, sorry, can I go before
please,
you? Or are you still collecting
I'm
yourself?
still collecting myself, yes.
The rest, I actually watched the video. Besides that whole thing right there, the rest of the ad was very patriotic. And, I mean, watch even the words here. The rest of the ad was really good. The hair and the covering, it was just a lot.
It's a lot of orange.
A lot of orange, that's what you saw?
Yeah.
What'd you see there, Mark?
I was, as an ethnomusicology fan, I like Thus Spoke Zarathustra.
That's what
Oh, yeah, there you go. Very nice. Like Elvis.
Yeah.
That's right. So, you know that the pumpkin spice latte that Starbucks sells?
Yeah.
So, Starbucks doesn't care whether you enjoy the pumpkin spice latte ironically or sincerely as long as you purchase it.
Right.
So, whether Trump fans enjoy this ironically, that he's being goofy, or whether they are truly idolatrous, it doesn't matter as long as you vote for Trump.
All right. A major move for the former president, by the way, over the weekend. As his campaign says, it pulled in roughly $50 million at a Mar-a-Lago fundraiser. The former president and his team, at least for the moment, trying to allay fundraising concerns. Now, it was a very good headline for the former president, but that just got topped. Trump deciding to weigh in today on abortion, saying his position is that the issue should be left to the states.
The states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land, in this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different.
Now, he did not comment on whether he supported a national ban of any type. All right, Ashley.
But did support IVF.
He did support IVF. That was also in there.
Yeah, which was big. I mean,
why do you think he brought this out today? Like, he could have just taken that $50 million headline win, sat on the sideline for a handful of days, but he decided to jump in it right off the bat.
Well, I think it's been reported all weekend that he said something last week, which we talked about earlier, that he was going to say something. I don't know why he picked today. I mean, who knows? But I actually think it's the best position that he could take because everyone's a little bit mad at him. And so, I mean, and also, which I said during the primary when Nikki Haley came out and talked about it, at least someone's talking about it and giving it up back to the. I mean, that was what this court wrote.
Leave it to the states. California, that's Gavin Newsom. Michigan, that's Gretchen Whitmer. Is he saying, is the Mr. I can fix it? I'm the one to fix it, saying Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer do your thing? Or are Republicans going to be comfortable with that?
No, but I think what he's saying are Democrats or Republicans that are pro-choice going to be comfortable in Florida with 6 weeks abortion. I mean,
right.
You decide to be where you're going to be.
Is he going to be comfortable with 6-week abortion? Like, literally, he's going to vote on this in November, and he hasn't answered the question. Florida is going to have a 6-week abortion ban that's going to go into force of law very soon. In November, on the ballot is essentially going to be an ability for Florida voters to enshrine Roe v. Wade 2022-week abortion ban, so to speak, in the Constitution. The question is, which one does Trump choose? Trump won't say. He's like, oh, it's up to the states. Well, you're a member of the state. How are you going to vote? He's not saying.
All right, here was the Vice President Kamala Harris earlier today. I'll get your reaction, Brad, on the other side.
He yet again said he's proudly responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade. And one has to ask, proudly responsible that 1 in 3 women of reproductive age now live in a state with an abortion ban?
Brad?
I think the vice president's spot on there in that criticism, and I think she's turning into a terrific ally for the president on this issue. I think the other thing to point out from the president's statement is what you clarified in his statement, that he did not answer where he stands on a national abortion ban. I think voters understand that if a national abortion ban was put on his desk, he obviously would sign it. He cannot veto something like that. So this is still an issue for a lot of voters around the country, and they need to know at the end of the day he would sign an abortion ban.
Ashley, with the Republican Party, here's Mike Pence. President Trump's retreat on the right to life is a slap in the face of the millions of pro-life Americans who voted for him in 2016 and 2020. Slap in the face from the conservative perspective?
I think so. I mean, they wanted him to do a national ban, of course, but I think that if anyone's watched the election, I'd like to hear Chris talk about this. This is a losing issue for the Republicans.
Totally. Which goes
the
to
fact that he just said this and that's his stance. Let's take it off the table.
You think that's what this was? Take it off the table?
Well, look, it's about trade-offs, right? We're talking about with Biden and student loans. It gets Trump something, which is with the persuadables, these suburbanites, particularly women, to say, I'm cool. It's cool if you live in Pennsylvania. Nobody's going to ban abortion in Pennsylvania. It's okay. It's okay. It does that. But Trump has another problem, which is the Republican base is not united. And this will be what was the number one reason that I heard Republicans who were uneasy about Trump's character and his sort of verbal incontinence? What was the number one reason that they gave for supporting Trump, why it was necessary to support Trump, especially in 2016? Abortion, the courts. And he delivered on that. And now Trump doesn't have that as leverage anymore to say to those Pencean kind of conservatives, well, you got to suck it up and come on.
But do you really think he's losing any of those voters?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. Okay. I'm glad you asked a very good question.
Roll the animation that Steyerwalt loves. We didn't plan this. No animation, I'm told. Steyerwalt loves it.
Never mind.
Donald Trump will be hitting several battleground states this week as Trump continues to compete in the remaining primaries. Nikki Haley, Ashley supported her, continues to draw a surprising number of votes as a protest vote against him. So, Ashley, you want to read that question there? What is that question? What does that say?
How much of a problem is this for him?
How much is that of a problem for Trump, as Ashley asked you? Steyerwalt here to break it down. Chris?
Here, I'm going to do it. Okay, take a look at this. This is, we stole this from Axios, which is not just a floor wax, it's also a website. Okay, here you go. Here's the share of the vote for both of the major parties' presumptive nominees in certain primary contests. What do you see there? What do thine eyes behold? Which is that Trump is basically doing about 10 points worse than Biden in these states. So who cares, right? In this one sense, which is a lot of the people who are voting for Nikki Haley probably aren't even Republicans. A lot of them probably weren't even going to vote for Donald Trump, weren't going to vote for the Republican nominee anyway. Maybe 10%. So that's half of that. We'll call that half of Trump's problem in those states represents people who were never going to be available Republican voters anyway. But now look at this. Now look at C here. Battleground state general election averages from our friends, partners, brothers and sisters in arms at Decision Desk HQ, 41%, 45 in Arizona, 46 to 49, 44 to 46. Donald Trump has a problem with his base. And the fact that, and these abortion comments further it, which is, for conservatives, and we've talked about this here before, which is Republicans aren't afraid of Biden, right? Democrats are afraid of Trump. People who are skeptical of Joe Biden, they'll go vote against Donald Trump. People who are Republicans who don't like Donald Trump, they're not afraid of Joe Biden. They're not worried about democracy being eclipsed if Joe Biden gets reelected and all of that stuff. So I think what we see with Trump is, in his base, his problem is more persistent than I think Biden's is.
All right. Steyerwalt breaks it down.
One thing. I always get suspicious when I see percentages. So I'm like, okay, well, what's the number? So I just Googled the Arizona results, and I'm sorry I didn't come better prepared.
No, you're good. You're good. Go for it.
Donald Trump won 491,000 votes in Arizona, and Biden won 374,000 votes in Arizona. So congratulations. Joe Biden won a bigger percentage, but fewer people turned out to vote for him.
Well, thanks for just micturating all over my... I'm so glad you're here again, Mark.
I do think there's a question
I'm wearing my welcome.
You're good. You're good.
Chris, I'd be curious to get your thoughts on this, too. What is the modern... What is the base right now for Republicans? Because it used to be kind of free enterprise, free traders, Chamber of Commerce type Republicans. I don't know if that no longer makes the base.
So the parties are changing lanes.
Yeah.
So as Democrats continue, so Joe Biden roughly got elected with Dwight Eisenhower's coalition, which is to say non-white voters and college-educated or affluent kinds of suburbanites. That was the Republican coalition. Now the Republicans have basically the FDR coalition, which is a lot of working class whites, a lot of voters without college degrees, a lot of rural voters, and all of that stuff. And the party's priorities are changing along the way, and I think that's reflected in what you see.
All right, still much more ahead here on the Hill. It is Elon versus the Supreme Court. Not here in the U.S. Musk is now in a standoff with one of the biggest countries in the world. Why he's battling Brazil and what it could mean for free speech arguments here at home. Plus, a video involving a strategy, RFK Jr. and the election now grabbing some headlines. Why the campaign, though, is denying a speech from a supporter that is starting to get a bit of attention. That's on the other side of the break. You are watching The Hill here on NewsNation. Stay with us. All right, so the independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is trying to get himself out of the latest controversy surrounding his comments about January 6th. The campaign said in a fundraising message stating that protesters that day had been, quote, stripped of their constitutional liberties was an error. Then, in an email to supporters, they said, quote, I have not examined the evidence in detail, but reasonable people, including Trump opponents, tell me there is little evidence of a true insurrection. They observed that the protesters carried no weapons. Now, he later clarified, saying that statement was incorrect. All right, what's going on here, Mark, with RFK Jr.?
Well, he's just accustomed to saying whatever comes into his mind, and some of the stuff that comes through his mind is crazy. Like, 7 months after 9/11, he famously said that pig farmers were more dangerous than Osama bin Laden. This is the guy who's running for president now, and he's got essentially sort of a clown show of a campaign.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's composed of various people who don't know what they're doing, including the candidate. And so they have a tendency to just say things and like, oh my God, I didn't mean to say that, and retract them. Now, that stuff worked for Donald Trump, but Kennedy is not Donald Trump, and he's kind of trying to be.
Anyone want to push back on it?
I was just going to say, I feel like we're saying the same thing as what we said in 2020 or 2016 when Trump was running. Like, there's no way.
Yeah, but Trump is still running, though. It's the thing. That lane is still Trump's lane.
But one of the things, but we didn't know it was Trump's lane in 2016. We just never thought it was going to happen. But one of the questions I have, because I think I'm the only person, this is for Chris, that I still think RFK takes Trump voters more than they take Biden voters, because I think it's the same mentality.
It's a super interesting question, and it's sort of the moment that we're in right now, and that's why.
You want me to play the video? Okay, so this video is going around. It is from Rita Palma. She is listed, at least as of last night, as the New York director for Kennedy's presidential campaign. It's making the round on social. Play it.
Nobody gets to 270, then Congress picks the president. So who are they going to pick? Who are they going to pick? If it's a Republican Congress, they'll pick Trump. So we're rid of Biden either way.
All right, so the campaign's been asked about this. Here's what they told us in a statement. They said, quote, she is not involved in electoral strategy nationally or in New York. This was not a campaign event. She was speaking as a private citizen. You see the statement on the screen. What's going on here?
They're saying that because they don't want to alienate Democrats who would come over because it'll make Trump president, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about any of that stuff. What I care about is what is the rationale here? What's the thinking? To your question, who does this hurt more? And she's making a very convincing argument to, I assume, a Republican-leaning audience. Yeah. Actually, this hurts Biden a lot more. And I think a lot of Republicans are going to get more excited about RFK because they're going to say, hey, look, this guy's really going to kill Biden and Trump's going to win New York, because basically she was making this argument that because of RFK, that Joe Biden would not win New York by 2 million votes like he did last time. See, I'm using numbers, not percentages. By 2 million votes as he did last time, but that Donald Trump will win with a plurality. And I can see a lot of Republicans getting high on the hopium here and that it's all going to happen, it's going to do this stuff. But I would be careful if I was a Republican, because in the battleground states, we don't know where RFK is going to get on the ballot, but in the battleground states, among the voters who most want to burn the world down and who are most fed up with the establishment of both parties and most whatever.
You're nodding yes. You're nodding yes.
If I was a Republican, I wouldn't want RFK Jr. on the ballot in Arizona. I wouldn't want him on the ballot in North Carolina. I wouldn't want him on the ballot in Georgia.
Live by the poll, die by the poll. Franklin and Marshall poll in Pennsylvania last week showed that Joe Biden leading Donald Trump by 10 in a multi-candidate race where RFK Jr. is there. That 10-point lead becomes a 2-point lead. Another poll by Eckes, the Democratic firm in Arizona, swing state, Nevada, swing state, shows that RFK Jr. pulls so many votes from among Hispanic voters from the electorate that Trump almost beats, if not beats, Joe Biden among that segment of the electorate, and he would win that state.
So you're saying that it's taken Biden
so far it is.
But correct, so far, because usually in this point of polling, when you look at these, like Democrats are generally unsatisfied with their nominee because they're always wanting to be bigger and bolder. There's a good chunk of people there. This president has a particular favorability problem. But when the election closes in the end, Democrats come home, those numbers solidify, and that small segment, I think, of like this changing GOP base, I think they're looking for a home. They may go the
I think Republicans should be very careful about what they wish for here.
And the Trump campaign is actually doing stuff about it, and the RNC is doing stuff about it. They are taking it seriously. Democrats are just taking it more seriously, and they're more scared of our.
All right. Meantime, Elon Musk is now in a standoff with a member of Brazil's top court over social media censorship. Brazil's Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes has ordered an investigation of X over fake news and hate messages, and then into Musk for obstruction. Now, Musk is accusing the Supreme Court Justice in that country of suppressing free speech and violating Brazil's constitution. Musk took to an X Live event.
We're being given demands to suspend sitting members of the parliament and major journalists. Moreover, we could not tell them that this was at the behest of Alexander Morales. We had to pretend that it was due to our rules of service.
Now, Brazil's Supreme Court Chief Justice commented on the matter today, saying, quote, "Every company is subject to the Constitution." You ready to defend Elon Musk here as a Democrat? Never?
So what? I'm not going to get into the effects of foreign policy. I think Elon Musk has really taken what used to be a really great product and run it into the ground. But I do think these are important issues and debates that we need to be having, and they're complicated. It's hard to remain ideological here.
So here's the question that I had. He's an American citizen. This is a private American company, and now you've got a court in a foreign country trying to tell him what to do and trying to tell what that company to do. Are you anyone comfortable with that?
Well, then block it if they don't like it.
Yeah,
that's their business.
Yeah, they could block it.
Block
Absolutely.
What? Twitter.
X.
You think that's why he's jumping in to try to save it?
No.
There?
I think he's trying to do a human rights message. I really do.
Free speech is not popular, but it is important.
Mm-hmm.
And what the United States has to remember that as we start trying to regulate speech and talk about how these people work, sometimes it'll be from people you don't like, right? Like you have a great beard. He does not have a very good beard. It's going to sometimes be from people who you don't like, but you still, and I think Brad is demonstrating the American principle here, right. Which is, look, he doesn't want to kick it with Elon Musk, but he also wants to stand up for free speech. And as Mitt Romney once said, corporations are people too, my friend. Corporations are people.
That's why I think this one is interesting. There's a lot of different layers to unpack with it. All right, coming up. It just might be the quote of the day from Wall Street, and it has nothing to do with stocks. Did Jamie Dimon just nail the 2024 election? And what to make of his potential political future? Plus, did you know that the eclipse began its path across the United States in Hill Country? Oh, yes, it did. We will explain. You are watching The Hill here on NewsNation. Stay with us.
You are on fire today.
And they don't come from little means. Not from someone who's pro-Trump, nor are they someone who is pro-Biden. That's the parameters. Okay, here's the quote. Our highly charged emotional and political domestic issues are centered around 1, immigration and lack of border security, and 2, the fraying of the American dream, particularly for low-income and rural Americans who feel left behind amid the growing wealth and prosperity of others around them. That is from the nation's top banker, J.P. Morgan Chase's CEO, Jamie Dimon. It came in his annual shareholder letter earlier today. Our highly charged emotional and political issues are centered around those two, the border and the fraying of the American dream. You two are shaking your head. Is that the election in 2024?
Yeah.
I mean, public safety and economics, I think, is generally fundamental to every election. But in particular, too, I mean, look, I grew up in a low-income rural area in Arkansas, and absolutely, when Democrats talk about, we need to defend democracy, a lot of people from back home are like, but it's broken. What are we defending here? We need kind of radical change because, like the American dream isn't available to too many people. By the way, that message also resonates with communities of color, and you're starting to see some young men who are in communities of color drift to the Trump message for that reason. And so I think it's smart Trump's focusing on it. Democrats need to make sure we don't let them win that message.
And both those messages that issues that Jamie's talking about are both support Trump and his message.
Well, and that's when you see, this is a Wall Street banker, right? And he's not pro-Trump. He's not anti-Trump.
He and his people have had nothing to do with the problem either.
Here's what he also said today. He said, quote, "We may be entering one of the most treacherous political eras since World War II," talking about geopolitics.
Well, I do think the world is crumbling around us because no one's taken the Biden administration seriously. Sorry, Brad. But it's all your fault. So, no, I think he's spot on. But I also think what he said there is that we're not out of...
there's a lot.
There's a lot going on in regards to... If you look at the commercial real estate market and all those loans that are coming due in the next 3 to 4 years... The economy's in some serious trouble. All
right, so let me show you a headline from Reuters today. JP Morgan says CEO transition is a top priority, cites potential Diamond successors. He sold stock for the first time ever a few months ago. They're now talking about what's the successor look like over there at JP Morgan Chase. And here's what Jamie Dimon said earlier today. He said, quote, "Before I comment about cultural issues, I have a confession to make. I am a full-throated, red-blooded, patriotic, free enterprise, properly regulated, of course, and free market capitalist." What's his political future, if there is any? Do you think there's something there?
Well, Mike Bloomberg has a story to tell about what happens to people who are super successful in business and who are smart and probably right about a lot of things when they try to go to the political space. If being right were sufficient, if being smart were sufficient, we definitely wouldn't have these two people as the nominees of the two major parties running for president. That is just that's the cruel truth that in a nation of more than 330 million people, everybody knows that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are not the two best possible people who we could have running. And business guys often run into this, which is they want to go get into the space. They're like, okay, I'm right, I'm smart, I'm rich, let's go. But it's much the emotional blabber that he is talking about is also prevents people from making necessarily rational choices when it comes to candidates.
All right. Well, it doesn't matter if you are the nation's top banker with reams of data or just someone with a credit card, right? You know that food prices won't stop increasing. It's gotten to the point, check out this headline here. Millennials and Gen Z's trendy new splurge, groceries. Now, according to a report from McKinsey & Company, younger generations are spending more of their money on groceries over dining out and travel. One of our photographers here is literally shaking his head as I read this. I'm not joking. Frank, you're a millennial?
We should interview
Frank's kind of a millennial, he's saying. The report citing inflation as a driving factor for the trend.
I mean, they're calling it, once again, we're in the percentage world, and I always get suspicious about that, but we're talking about splurging. Are they splurging, or are they just like, I need to eat, and this stuff is expensive?
I think what they said is they're buying, trendy things.
But it's also like I do some work for the post-millennial generations, as we call them. But they've come up in this. They come up in this.
Is that what it is? You don't want to say
Gen Z, all that kind of stuff. But we just call them post-millennials. After
you're
born.
You're
so it's Gen Z. You're pre-millennial.
Okay.
But this generation has come up in reality TV shows centered around cooking and chefs.
Right.
Where they learned to cook during the pandemic because we had nothing else to do, and that camaraderie is still very much missed around them. And you don't have to worry about split checks and fancy bills at restaurants. It's a lot more fun to dine and cook together.
Says the Democrat.
Well, I mean,
you're worried about this for the election, though?
No, don't get me wrong, but it's not that they're just shifting their the poll shows that they're shifting.
By the way, I'm not suggesting that this is only Democrat Republican thing. But
it's not like they're all of a sudden spending more on eating altogether. They're shifting the cost from restaurants to eating at home.
Right.
But it's not so. You're not saving much eating at home anymore.
I just want to know why Brad hates young people and wants them to be broke.
And you say that this needs to turn around by 4th of July, basically.
Yeah, basically July 1st. So the research is pretty clear over history. Voters reached their conclusions about the condition of the economy by the end of the second quarter. They harden, and it doesn't matter what happens after that. That's what they think about the economy. So the clock is really running on Biden.
Right.
Yeah, well, if it is, he's in trouble. I think that Wall Street Journal swing state poll shows him underwater by about 30 points in the swing states to Trump when it comes to who manages the economy better.
Right. They'd rather just talk about the eclipse today, probably.
Yeah, they'd rather talk about abortion.
Just have fun and eat at home. You watched the eclipse today?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you still have your glasses?
Yeah, I still have my glasses in my pocket.
Into the studio.
Right here.
The great thing about what's crazy is you can actually see the little sliver Like I can see
that
that
big?
light right there, but you can't see anything else. It's all black. So it's a pretty interesting effect, and it was cool to watch.
There you go.
The last time I did this was second grade, so I enjoyed it.
There you go. All right. Thank you all. Coming up here on the Hill, there is one place in the country, by the way, that is not experiencing food inflation. It's a place that Leland and I want to go to. Has nothing to do for the food, nothing to do with inflation. He will join me to talk about it after the break. You're watching The Hill here on NewsNation.
NewsNation Wednesday. Is college really worth it? Maybe not. Meet the blue-collar millionaires who have a better idea. A special edition of Cuomo, Trading Up with guest Mike Rowe. Wednesday night, 8/7 Central. Only on NewsNation.
So before we say goodbye, here's a story that catches my eye. Not just today, but really every year this time around. You're looking at the food menu there at Augusta National for the Masters this week. Despite the fluctuation in food prices all across the country, right? We were just talking about it with the panel.
Fluctuation, rampant inflation.
Rampant inflation, there you go. Another way to put it. You can always count on the Masters menu essentially staying the same. Look at those prices. Egg salad, $1.50, pork barbecue, $3. What else we got? A beer for just $5. Soft drinks, $2. Most of On Balance, Leland Vitter. What's good, man?
Evidently, food at the Masters. It's good every year.
It's good every year.
They keep the pictures of the food.
They keep the prices the same every single year.
Well, that's what happens when you've got a bunch of billionaires. Right? They don't have to let in women. They can keep the food the same.
I think they let them in. They let women in now.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to. You can't bring your cell phone on. Look, this, and I think you would agree with me, is the greatest week of the year.
It is. For me, a close second to Michigan, Ohio State, but yes, this is up there.
Well, that's because Michigan.
Yeah, it's been a few good.
No,
few good years.
There's something about Masters Week. It's the beginning of spring, and Jim Nantz opens it. He says a tradition unlike any other, right? And there is something, whether it be the food prices or the traditions, that keeping things the same and having sort of that benchmark every year brings you back to a touchstone that's really nice.
I'll text you the video, but I text my friends every year. The Monday of Augusta. The guy playing the theme song on piano. And you just see him playing the piano, you hear the theme song.
Is that how you play the piano?
I don't play, so I don't know. But the food prices stays the same basically every year at Augusta.
And now you can order Masters food to your house.
Can you?
Yes.
From the club?
Yes.
Really?
By a Gold Belly.
Huh. Did not know that. There you go. Leland dropping info. What you got coming up tonight?
We're going to be talking about lots of food things. No, we got Mike Huckabee on with us.